So what I'd like to talk about is something really that was very dear to Kahn's heart, which is how do we discover what is really particular about a project? How do you discover the uniqueness of a project, as unique as a person? Because it seems to me that finding this uniqueness has to do with dealing with the whole force of globalization, that the particular is central to finding the uniqueness of place and the uniqueness of a program in a building. And so I'll take you to Wichita, Kansas, where I was asked some years ago to do a science museum on a site right downtown by the river. And I thought the secret of the site is to make the building of the river, part of the river. Unfortunately, though, the site was separated from the river by McLean's Boulevard. So I suggested, let's reroute McLean's. And that gave birth instantly to Friends of McLean's Boulevard. And it took 6 months to reroute it. The first image I showed the building committee was this observatory, astronomical observatory, the Jantar Mantar in Jaipur, because I talked about what makes a building of science. And it seemed to me that this structure, complex, rich, and yet totally rational, it's an instrument, had something to do with science. And somehow building for science should be different and unique and speak of that. And so my first sketch after I left was to say, let's cut the channel and make an island and make an island building. And I got all excited and came back, and they sort of looked at me in dismay and said, an island? This used to be an island, Ackerman Island. And we filled in the channel during the Depression to create jobs. And so the process began, and they said you can't put it all on an island. Some of it has to be on the mainland because we don't want to turn our back to the community. And there emerged a design, the galleries sort of forming an island, and you could walk through them or on the roof. And there were all kinds of exciting features. You could come in through the landside buildings, walk through the galleries into playgrounds in the landscape. If you were cheap, you could walk on top of the bridge to the roof, peek in the exhibits, and then get totally seduced, come back and pay the $5 admission. And the client was happy, was sort of happy, because we were $4 million over the budget, but essentially happy, but I was still troubled. And I was troubled because I felt this was capricious. It was complex, but there was something capricious about its complexity. It was what I would say compositional complexity. And I felt that if I had to fulfill what I talked about, a building for science, there had to be some kind of a generating idea, some kind of a generating geometry. And this gave birth to the idea of having toroidal generating geometry with its center, one with its center deep in the earth for the landside building, and a toroid with its center in the sky for the island building. A toroid, for those who don't know, is the surface of a donut, or for some of us a bagel. And out of this idea started spitting off many, many kind of variations of different plans and possibilities. And then the plan itself evolved in relationship to the exhibits. And you see here the intersection of the plan with the toroidal geometry. And finally the building, this is the model. And when there were complaints about budget, I said, well, it's worth doing the island because you get twice for your money. Reflections. And here's the building as it opened with a channel overlooking downtown. And as seen from downtown, and the bike routes going right through the building, so those traveling the river would see the exhibits and be drawn to the building. The toroidal geometry made for a very efficient building. Every beam in this building is the same radius, all laminated wood. Every wall, every concrete wall is resisting the stresses and supporting the building. Every piece of the building works. These are the galleries with the light coming in through the skylights. and at night, and on opening day. Going back to 1976. In 1976, I was asked to design a children's memorial museum in the Holocaust Museum in Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, which you see here, the campus. And I was asked to do a building, and I was given all the artifacts of clothing and drawings, and I felt very troubled. I worked on it for months, and I couldn't deal with it because I felt people were coming out of the historic museum. They are totally saturated with information, and to see yet another museum with information, it would make them just unable to digest. And so I made a counter proposal. I said no building. There was a cave on the site. We tunnel into the hill, descend through the rock into an underground chamber. There's an anteroom with photographs of children who perished, and then you come into a large space. There is a single candle flickering in the center. By an arrangement of reflective glasses, it reflects into infinity in all directions. You walk through the space. A voice reads the names, ages, and place of birth of the children. This voice does not repeat for 6 months. And then you descend to light and to the north and to life. Well, they said people won't understand. They think it's a discotheque. You can't do that. And they shelved the project. And it sat there for 10 years. And then one day, Abe Spiegel from Los Angeles, who had lost his 2-year-old son at Auschwitz, came, saw the model, wrote the check, and it got built 10 years later. So many years after that, in 1998, I was on one of my monthly trips to Jerusalem, and I got a call from the foreign ministry saying, we've got the chief minister of the Punjab here. He is on a state visit. We took him on our visit to Yad Vashem. We took him to the Children's Memorial. He was extremely moved. He's demanding to meet the architect. Could you come down and meet him in Tel Aviv? And I went down. And Chief Minister Badel said to me, we Sikhs have suffered a great deal, as you have Jews. I was very moved by what I saw today. We are going to build our national museum to tell the story of our people. We're about to embark on that. I'd like you to come and design it. And so, you know, it's one of those things that you don't take too seriously. But 2 weeks later, I was in this little town, Anandpur Sahib, outside Chandigarh, the capital of the Punjab, and the temple, and also next to it the fortress that the last guru of the Sikhs, Guru Govind, died in as he wrote the Khalsa, which is their holy scripture. And I got to work, and they took me somewhere down there, 9 kilometers away from the town and the temple, and said, that's where we have chosen location. And I said, this just doesn't make any sense. The pilgrims come here by the hundreds of thousands. They're not going to get in trucks and buses and go down there. Let's get back to the town and walk to the site. And I recommended they do it right there on that hill and this hill and bridge all the way into the town. And as things are a little easier in India, the site was purchased within a week, and we were